All right, welcome back, everyone, to Servant Leadership Library, where we dig into the minds of leaders who put service before self and, of course, tech before sleep. I'm your host, Nicholas Paulukow, CEO of One to One Incorporated, the IT firm that keeps your tech running smoother than your morning coffee. Today, we've got a guest who's proof that you can take the boy out of the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the boy. Our guest, Arlin Sorensen. He is the VP of Ecosystem and Evangelism at ConnectWise. And while most know him as a leadership guru, this simple Iowa farm boy has been bridging the gap between ag tech and IT since the 90s. So, from cultivating crops to cultivating businesses, Arlen has grown more than just corn. He's found HDC peer groups helping businesses owners recap the benefits of learning from each other. Get ready to learn from the best servant leader in the business. We're here with Arlen, and welcome, Arlen. Thank you for joining us today. Really excited to have you with us.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Nick. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. You're kind of famous in our ecosystem in the MSP space, but could you give the audience a little bit about yourself personally, like kind of what led you to this path today, like where we're at today?
Yeah, well, I bought an Apple II Plus back in 1982 and started my technology journey. And, as I was learning how to run that machine for my farm accounting system, my neighbors would want to come over and see the computer because I had the only computer around. So I spent many an evening showing them how VisiCalc and the WordStar would actually make their life better. And, I'd take them down to the city and help them buy a computer. And after a few years of that, I decided, I'm going to start a little business here and started to sell computers. And that was the beginning of my IT journey. Along the way, we got into the ag tech business and got into the GPS stuff. And then, in 2000, Nick, we were struggling. I had loaded up for Y2K. I thought this was going to be the greatest event in history, and it didn't come to Iowa at all. And so I had 13 engineers that I had hired in '99, and I had nothing for them to do. And we didn't know what to do. We thought we were just missing the boat somehow. But one of my leadership team members said, let's call some other people and just find out what's going on. And that's where HTG was born.
Wow.
We met with 3 other companies from Iowa for a day in Des Moines and talked about it. They didn't have any Y2K business either. So we knew then what we had to do. We had to go downsize because we were bleeding cash bad. And so we learned the value of peer groups, and then we started to build those groups and put them together, and it's been a great ride. We've learned an awful lot from our peers.
Wow, that is an amazing story. I mean, that and kind of tell the audience. I mean, you mentioned you're a farm boy from Iowa, but those farms are quite large, right? You mentioned your neighbors; they're not very close, I would assume.
No, I know. Our family operation farms about 3,000 acres.
Wow.
My nephew manages that with my brother. And when I started farming back in 1977, I had 300 acres, and that was all I could. That's all I could manage. Today, with the technology, it's about a 2 FTE job to farm 3,000 acres.
Wow.
Because the tech is so good. And it's ahead of many other industries, and people don't realize it, but ag tech is a huge benefit to the food production system in this country.
That's unbelievable. You have a wonderful property. I had the honor of being there, and we saw some of that equipment operating. And I can only think that the equipment is probably quite expensive, but we think today like we have those Roombas in our home, right? And I'm like, wow, we're like doing Roomba for like thousands of acres of farm. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're not quite to unattended yet, but it's coming. And
Wow.
but the big change is that with GPS technology, if my nephew needs to farm in after dark, he can farm through the night.
Wow.
When I was farming, if the sun went down, we were done because we couldn't see anymore. But today, he's able to run 24 hours if he needs to because of the weather.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Well, you refer to yourself as a simple Iowa farm boy, and kind of help us understand the roots of like farming, right? That's a very commendable and probably very difficult business. And did that develop any of these leadership skills that you utilize today?
Absolutely. I grew up on the farm. I live in the house I grew up in today, um, and started farming. I went to Iowa State and got a degree in farm operations. That was
Okay.
my plan for my career, was to come back and farm with my dad and my brother, and that's what I started to do after college. But I fell in love with technology, and so my brother and I decided I'd take the path of technology, and he would take the path of farming. And we learned a lot working together with our dad, and so you know, family operations are a struggle at times for sure.
Yeah.
But what we decided to do that worked out well for us was we were 50-50 on everything. So
Oh, I see.
that way we didn't look over each other's shoulders and try to micromanage each other. We knew that we were doing the best we could with what we were responsible for. And so that really helped us to trust one another and to really focus
Mm.
on doing our jobs as effectively as possible. And so I learned a lot about leadership from my dad, and the way he helped us bring this all together. And we're still partners today,
Wow.
47 years later. So
Wow. I mean, that's a blessing in itself, right? So many families struggle with that. I know we're in a farming community and there's a lot of family owned, family generational businesses, and it brings a special dynamic to the personal relationship and as well as the business after each generation goes. So that's a very big accomplishment to continue to be working together. I think that's amazing.
well, and both my kids have come back to the IT operation, and so we've got multi-generational stuff going on
Wow.
here on the ag and the tech side.
Wow, wow. When you kind of compare both of those, right? I mean, you have IT and ag, and then the IT portion of the business that you worked on. What are the similarities that you found, especially like with leading people, kind of leading innovation? How do they compare?
Well, I mean, people are people no matter what business they're working for. So,
Yeah.
that's always where the challenges are and the real opportunities,
Mm,
to really build into folks. On the farm, there's not as many people involved as there were on the IT side, but those people were doing significant jobs and needed support and training. On the IT side, we grew to 7 locations across 5 states, and we were
wow,
doing remote work before it was the thing to do.
wow.
Um, but you got to invest in your people, and
Mm,
you know, a lot of people look at leadership as a triangle, and you're sitting at the top as the owner. I've always looked at it the other way, where it's an upside down triangle, and I'm
mm.
the guy trying there to hold up the rest of the team and pour into them and help build their skills so that I don't have to make all the decisions and get everything
Mm.
done.
That's well said. Actually, that's a very good visual, right? Because many times, as a leader, you're selling the vision and you're selling, the plan for the future. But really, you can't convince people to believe in that, right? You have to lead them through that. And I think that is something that I'll remember. That's a great nugget. I really appreciate you sharing that. And you talked about kind of HTG peer groups and it became something local, like in your community. I mean, that is amazing. How did you find it expanding outside of just your community, like when you started to develop it?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we created it back in 2000, and I never had any intention of growing it beyond one group. You know,
Really?
my strategy was I'd like to find a dozen business owners that would commit to meeting regularly and helping each other. And I figured if 12 worked for Jesus, it worked for me.
I love it.
And so we got to 12 in 2005. So it took us 5 years to get 12
Wow.
companies involved. I went to an event out in Redmond, Washington, called SMB Nation in 2006, and they asked me to do a presentation on this peer group thing that I had started, and so I did. And coming off the stage, I had a bunch of people come up and say, I like the idea. I want that peer group. And I'd say, no, 12's it. So I said, I'll create a wait list. And so by the end of that year, we had 36 companies on a waiting list. So we
Wow.
started a couple more groups in 2006, and I went back in 2007 and did another presentation and came back with 60 companies that want to be involved. And things just kind of exploded and took off, and created a lot of issues, because when we had 3 groups, I could facilitate one a month and have 12 quarterly meetings. When we got beyond that, I had to figure out, what am I going to do? It's not my full-time job. I'm running an IT company. So, the genius I asked my leadership team to all facilitate groups. And that worked for a couple years, but pretty soon they came back and said, we got a full-time job here running this company. We really can't be gone all the time facilitating peer groups. So we had to shift the model and use members to help facilitate. And it's been a joy to watch it grow over the years. I mean, today we're serving over 900 people globally. We've got groups in Australia, New Zealand, and in Europe, along with North America. And God's really blessed it, and it's been a great ride to just watch people rise up and become servant leaders.
Yeah, I mean, that's so well said. And I think just seeing or even hearing you, right? I mean, when you mentioned or you share with many of us that are in the group, about this go-giver mentality. I mean, I'm hearing you that you're just giving to help others, which has created this blessing, right? I mean, you mentioned kind of the blessings of God, right? Like, I mean, really, it's to go out and to help and to give guidance and support and love and caring, and then great things happen, right? They flourish or they build, and it seems like that's what's really happened in this. And I think as a member myself, it just is led with such compassion and led with such honesty, right? Like of helping each other. Really as a parent within the group. And I think that that's what's so powerful about it. But you bring it true from the top, from you, about that servant leadership, right? Like, don't get too consumed about yourself, share within the group. And I think many of us potentially, as we start to become leaders, think that this is a rite of passage and forget that there was other people that helped us get there. Have you seen that yourself, right? I mean, we talk about leadership and then we talk about servant leadership, and it seems as if sometimes there's 2 paths there. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no question about it. Scripture is clear that it's more blessed to give than receive. And when you finally figure that out and understand that your willingness to pour into others will come back in multiple ways to enhance yourself, it really drives you and motivates you to be a go-giver and to share. And the thing I noticed in the peer groups is that a lot of people are willing to share. They're not always willing to receive. We want to be self-sufficient. We want to do it ourselves. The old pull up your bootstraps and get to work. But we don't need to figure out everything on our own. And that's really the power of peer groups or small groups, is you have the opportunity to learn from others. And there's no reason we all have to make every mistake ourselves. We can learn where the landmines are and what not to step on, just by listening and being willing to receive that input. And so that's such a powerful part of where peer groups really make an impact, is that you can learn things that will help you propel your journey just by listening to folks that have gone ahead and have made some of those mistakes.
Have done it. I think that's well said. I think in the beginning, right, it can be intimidating regardless of who you are. When you get there, you're used to kind of working within your own ecosystem, and now everybody's trying to be like measuring up. Like, I don't want to be in one of my meetings, I just said, hey, listen, I joined a bigger group. I'm smaller potentially than the $100 million guy. But you know what? I have things to share, and I have things to tell you how many things I've screwed up. But it takes a little while to kind of get into the feeling of being able to be open like that. But I think as people give and share, you realize, ironically, we all laugh. We're all talking about the same problems. It's just if you're bigger, it's more exacerbated. The risk is higher, you know.
Yeah. Well, I remember early on, our largest member, who was significantly larger than everybody else in the group, um, made a comment after a presentation by one of our smaller members. And this guy was talking about his single salesperson and something he had tried that had worked really, really well. And when he got done, the sales leader in this large company said, I know you don't feel like you necessarily help us when we come to these meetings, but I've got 20 salespeople, and what you just shared is a $100,000 idea to me. And we don't always know what that impact's going to be,
Right.
but we are having an impact. And
Yeah.
that's where servant leadership is so important, is recognizing that what we do and what we say has an impact.
Yeah.
And we need to really think about those things as we share and speak into others.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I can remember now, it's been quite a few years, but my first meeting was with a gentleman that is an excellent guy named Foster. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't know why you're in this group. Like, you're only X dollars. Like, what do you have to prove? Like, he looks at me, right? And Foster.
I
And I
do.
was like, oh crap, I better get my A game on. So I come back the next meeting, and there was another gentleman named Chris Jan, and they're just firing all cylinders. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to recover from this, so I'm just going to go in hot and heavy. And then and I think, obviously they knew how to like motivate people, but that's intimidating, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
should you be here? And that you had to fight your way into where was your place. And that it was a humbling experience, but I will tell you, I was always prepared for every meeting. Yeah.
Well, most of us that run small businesses, we like that because we can do what we want to do. We're our own boss, and we aren't necessarily accountable to anybody else. And that's a great lifestyle, but the
Yeah.
problem is you do what you want to do, not what you need to do. And that's
Right.
where a peer group can really come alongside and help you.
Yep.
It's got the ability to help hold you accountable and to push you along and to make you better. And that's the whole point of what we try to do.
Absolutely. I think my uncle told me the one time, who owned many businesses, he said, Nick, if there was no such thing as clients and employees, owning a business would be great. Right. And I'm like,
Absolutely.
so true, right?
Take the
Well,
people out of the business and it's going to be awesome. Except
you
there's
know,
nobody to buy anything.
that's true. You're absolutely right. As you kind of you have a lot of experience, right? I mean, you've run multiple businesses, and you're also building this peer group. Could you share with kind of the audience any significant lessons that you've learned from facilitating a group, or just what you learned along your leadership journey? I think a lot of them that listen today think that they have to have it all figured out, right? And I think a minute ago you just said we're all here to help each other out because we have all things to share. But could you give us some of the understanding of how that's been part of your impact as you've kind of built each of these organizations?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I had to learn was to shut up and listen. Um, my dad always told me it's better to be quiet and thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And,
Mm,
so as a facilitator in particular, I often would try to solve the problem and not let the group interact and really, connect around it. So that's been a big learning thing for me is, as leaders, you got to listen first. And too often we're quick to just try to fix it or
mhm.
take over and do a command and control thing. But you know, servant leaders listen first. They seek to understand and to really know what the problem is, number one, and then figure out how to help resolve it. So I've had to learn some listening skills, and I'm still learning those because at least I tend to, as soon as you start talking, I'm thinking, what am I going to say back related to what you're saying, right? I'm not really listening always. And so I've been working hard on that because it's an important skill that leaders really need to develop. You know, the other thing is reflecting. Right now, 13 weeks ago, I had an accident and tore my quad tendon in my left knee. And so I've been laid up for the last 13 weeks, basically no travel, which is the first time in over 20 years that I have been at home for 13 weeks. But you know, it's given me a chance to reflect, and you know what I realized was I was going so fast, I wasn't even thinking about what was going on because I was just trying to get ready for the next thing. And you know, we have always been a big believer in planning and the importance of plans. And you know, the value of plans is it gives you a reason to say no. If it's not in the plan, the answer needs to be no. And you know, if it's really important, you adjust the plan so you can say yes. But if it's not in the plan, we have to be disciplined enough to say no. I've said no more in the last 13 weeks than I've said in the last 13 years. You know, I've always been a people pleaser, or I'll do whatever I can to help, even if it doesn't make sense. And so, you know, God's really convicted me that that's not the way to live. You got to listen. You've got to really reflect and understand. And the answer is not always going to be yes. And so my wife and I have had a lot of those conversations these last 13 weeks about what are we going to do coming out of this? Because the tendency is going to be, oh, let's fill the calendar up again like I used to do. But that's not the right thing. It's been great to be able to just have conversations with people, you know, because I'm not on the road, and I've been able to speak into a lot of lives as a result. So that's been a real big learning thing for me.
That's a blessing, though. You know, a valid point, right? I think many times as leaders, we find that we have to answer everyone's questions because we're these problem solvers. And I would agree, many times you're so used to solving problems that we also have to be really great question askers too, right? And that takes a lot. And I humble myself when I try to teach someone else that has leadership skills, like why it's so important to ask the question and not assume. And so it's pretty amazing how you kind of go through that in your journey and discussion, right? Because we're constantly thinking about how we're going to help because we have a servant leadership mind of giving and helping. But I think what I'm hearing from you is sometimes it's better to leave a little space of quiet and not to keep coming bringing back from the faith perspective. But I realized many years ago that when I go on an annual retreat, it's actually quiet.
Yeah.
And I actually can hear and clear my mind. And I said to myself, as a leader, why am I not doing that every day? And so blessings come from actually listening, right? What the Lord says, I'm talking to you all the time. You're just not listening.
Right.
And the factor of that coming off really realized that some coach said to me a long time ago, he said, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of anyone else. And you're like, yeah, but I am helping them. But helping, being quiet, I think that's a blessing, right? Not a blessing, I'm sorry that you hurt yourself, but it sounds like it gives you an opportunity for some clarity. That's really neat.
Yeah, well, I see it as a blessing, you know, even though wasn't my plan, it has been a really good experience. And you know, solitude is one of the spiritual disciplines that I've struggled to build in my own life that's so important. And you look at Jesus, he often went off by himself to have some time. He didn't answer the questions of the 12. He had them ask the questions and figure it out. You know, that's the way he led, and it was very effective. And probably the greatest leadership lessons we can get come from the Scripture.
You're absolutely right. That's amazing that you say that, right? Because when we go back and look at it and say, "Hey, listen, he wasn't liked by everyone," right? Like you think of that as a leader, right? Like are we liked, right? I don't know if that really matters. If we're following our purpose and our mission, then sometimes we're going to stand alone too. And I think that's really a great point because you can learn a lot from also learning about the path of Christ in that way. it teaches us a lot if we're willing to listen a little bit, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
I have never been a binge watcher of TV, but during my recovery here, I've watched the Chosen series,
Oh,
and from start to finish. And we don't know if that's exactly how things went down, but I think they captured the essence of a lot of it. And watching how Jesus interacted with people, he didn't walk around just telling people what to do.
right.
He would listen and wait and respond. And if he needed to go have some solitude, he would do that and spend time with the Father. So that that's a huge part of the discipline I'm trying to build right now is making sure that I'm listening to the people around me, but I'm also listening to God and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
Guide me.
I think that's well said. And I think to kind of as we think about that as leaders too, I think the chosen is what a wonderful blessing that is. Like just to be able to see it since we're so visual that you're like,
Right.
wow, just the education that you receive is amazing. And as you start to apply that in your daily life, right, there's a lot of blessings that come from being educated, right? And it's amazing to see kind of the skills and abilities that you can learn from that. It's amazing to kind of also try to understand as a leader, how he led as you and noted, and also realize that when you were the most effective, he was the most tempted. And so
Right.
I try to look at myself all the time, right? When you get, oh, woe is me as a leader, like why do I feel alone? Why is this messed up? And if I reflect back, and as somebody said to me the one day, they believe it, my sister, and she goes, those that are doing good are tempted the most. The devil doesn't like that. Those that are doing wrong, he doesn't have to worry about them.
Right.
And it was like, wow, that is a powerful statement of leadership, of just continue to do the right thing. And I had an issue growing in business, right? That I said to my pastor, listen, it doesn't feel right to make money. And he looked at me and he said, listen, he goes, what are you doing with the money? And I go, well, I'm trying to help other people. He goes, making the money is the talent the Lord gave you. But you hoarding it or taking it is not the right thing. But you have the power to do it and others don't. So use that for your ability to share. And I was like, wow, that really something many times that we're not here necessarily as servant leaders doing it for the financial gain. It's the benefit of others. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the ability to generate wealth is one of the spiritual gifts, and the ministry needs that to be
Right.
able to be effective. So, you know, another thing, Nick, that I learned early in my career and didn't really understand it till I watched it, is that God's principles always work, and
Yeah.
businesses follow God's principles without even recognizing them as such,
Yeah.
but they do it because it always works.
Yeah.
And if we get into Scripture and just really understand God's principles and apply those in our life, we will be a target, obviously, for the enemy to come after us. But as leaders, there's no better place to build on than that foundation of God's truth, because it always works.
And is always there for you. That touches me so much when you say that, because I'm kind of going down into a different territory here. But like the readings today that I read was about humility, right? And it says this is what it means to be humble, and this is how you lead with humility, and that's what brings you closer to the Lord, right? Like and so that hit me. From you saying that. And you're absolutely right. Like just thinking about something greater than yourself, that is pure, really helps center you. And I think that many times you really feel saddened for those that might not have a relationship with the Lord, because it gets you through a significant amount of struggles, I would say,
Absolutely.
right? Uh,
Absolutely.
Well, as you kind of work to kind of foster and create like a culture of servant leadership, how did you like continue to maintain that with the growth, right?
Well, I mean, it's all about the people, right? So, We were very careful about, I was very careful about who I hired, number one. So the team that I built around me, if I look back at my 47 years of being in business, the thing I'm most proud of is the people that I surrounded myself with, because most of them were way smarter than me and way more effective in leading than I was. But as we grew, we had to expand that pool because I couldn't hire them that fast. And so we had to be very selective with the facilitators that we brought on to help us and make sure that they understood the culture and that they knew what we were trying to do. That's when we wrote our Planning for Success manual, which has the 4 plans in it that really are the foundation of what we're trying to accomplish. So, as we look at these leaders, we want them to, first of all, understand legacy, right? And what is their personal legacy? What are they trying to accomplish as an individual? And what are they trying to accomplish with their business? So that they have clarity of what the end looks like. And then to support that, we have the life plan, which is how are you going to use your time? The leadership plan, how are you going to grow and become a servant leader? And then the business plan, which is obviously how are you going to operate your company so you can achieve the financial side of things. But that manual really gave us a common language to talk about. Every quarter as we meet, we focus on one of those 4 different plans. And like I said earlier, those plans then give you the right to say no to things.
Right.
And if a peer group's doing their job, they understand that plan and they can call people out and say, hey, you're not following your plan. You're off chasing this shiny object that really wasn't part of the program.
Yeah.
And because we all can find all kinds of things that we could go do. We need to do the things that we're focused on getting done so that we can achieve the legacy we want to leave.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that's a really big impact. I think we've heard it used in many times in any peer group that a mentor of mine that I had for many years said, listen, tell me before I accept speaking to you as a mentor, write down what you're going to do the day that you retire. What do you do? What time do you get up? What are you going to contribute? And when I read that, I'll determine if I want to speak to you anymore. I'm like, wow, this is rough, right?
Yeah.
And what I really learned was what you're teaching as well is at the end of the day, business is important, but people are going to forget about business, and we many times forget about ourselves. So, I find myself as someone that loves to help others. You generally forget about yourself sometimes, and that's not healthy either. And I think these plans really set a solid foundation for like paying attention to what does the end look in mind, right? Like at the end of the day, the business may not be there anymore. And so, what's important to you and how do you get through that? And I found many times everybody had a business plan, they had a financial plan, but nobody had like a personal plan. Like, and many people in our community, these entrepreneurs had gone so heavy and so hot that when they were done, they literally were done. Like, I mean, they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they really didn't have great quality of life or struggle. And I think you teach all of us that. I think there also is a blessing in the what you've built is I think I heard over the years that there's been some sad things that have happened, like a member may have passed away, and just because of that go-giver mentality that the community has come to help someone run their business or give them guidance is just an amazing thing. What an amazing gem to be able to get like-minded people around something so kind like that.
Yeah, we have had a number of those incidents where folks have unexpectedly passed, and if they've got their plans in place, it makes it easy for people to come alongside and help support them. If they don't, there's a lot of guesswork that has to go on because you're not sure what the intent is.
Right.
But to follow up on your comment there, one of the things that I have going on is a set of peer groups called S to S, Success to Significance. It's designed for people that have exited their company and their leadership role. And what surprised me when we started these a few years ago, people's identity gets so entwined with their business that when they transition out, they are lost. They don't have an identity anymore because
Right.
it was left with the business, and their purpose is gone. And I define it kind of like Moses wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. People don't know what to do. And
Right.
a common thing I hear from these folks is, we've got money, we've got time, we've got talent, but we don't have purpose. And this is a miserable way to live. And so, when we get together, we talk about how do we find our identity? How do we determine a purpose? And
Wow.
we do it as couples. That's the other lesson that I've learned, is that most male leaders are very poor at really communicating with their spouse, and
Yeah.
they don't talk about the important stuff. And so, as we do this together, they're having a shared experience for the first time,
Wow.
probably in decades, and they learn together how to find a joint purpose that they can both focus on and help each other find that purpose and identity. And so it's been a real joy to watch that happen, and to be part of that. And so, purpose is a really powerful thing. And when you don't have it, I don't care
Right.
how much money you have, I don't care how much time you have. Most of these guys, the first time they come to a meeting, say, I got a plan. I'm going to play golf, I'm going to watch Netflix, and I'm going to travel. And when they come back the next time, it's like, I've done that. It's not satisfying.
Yeah.
I need to figure out a purpose. And so, our meeting coming up here in a few weeks, they're going to write their obituary. Okay.
Wow. Wow.
So we're gonna force the issue of thinking about, what is it you want people to remember you for? What do you want people to think about you? People have this wrong perception that legacy happens when you die.
Right.
Legacy is created while you live.
Right.
And so you have to be intentional now while you're living to create the legacy you want to be behind when you do pass away. And
Wow.
a lot of people they don't connect that dot, but it's so important that we are intentional with our time now, because that will determine the legacy that we're going to leave behind us.
You're absolutely right. I think it reminds me of an exercise one time that I was guided through called the green box. And the green box is kind of like a legacy personal planning. And it was with my wife and I and some other couples. And the amazing part of, similar to what you're saying, is they said, we want you to write a letter to each of your children as if you weren't here.
Right.
And oh my, you have all of these high A players in a room and everybody's in tears, right?
Yep.
But the theory is, they don't remember or care to remember your accomplishments per se. They care to remember you and the stories. And the
Yep.
purpose
Yep.
is write your stories down so that when they're around the kitchen table telling the stories, that's your legacy that carries on. And I think many times we get so wrapped up in that. I think the beautiful thing you talk about is you have the ability to be with your kids on a daily basis and work with them. That's got to create such a wonderful memory for everyone, right? Not many people have that opportunity. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to get to heaven, not carry a hearse of money, right?
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
you're not going to take it with you. That's for sure.
but at the end of the day, your family is the one that's standing beside you, not your CFO that helped you get somewhere. Not that they won't be there, but a little different experience.
Yep.
Well, what advice would you give to younger leaders who are just starting out in their career and they're trying to start to become leaders?
Well, there's a lot of really strong leadership books in the market today. So, I'm a believer that you want to read some of those books and put those practices, into action. John Maxwell, Ken Blanchard, the Bible, obviously. There's a lot of really strong things to learn out there. Find a mentor. That's probably the most powerful way to really grow your leadership skills, is to have others speak into you, observe what's going on. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and learn. a servant leader's journey is really all about learning and listening. And so you gotta focus on it and be intentional about it. But people are willing to pour into you. You just gotta, kind of like you said with your mentor, you gotta know why. You don't want to. They're not going to waste their time, right? But if they understand that you're serious and you're willing to do the work and learn, people will pour into you. There's no question about that.
That's wonderful. And you earlier you talked about legacy. Let's kind of go back to that for you. What legacy do you want to leave?
Well, I mean, I'm building that legacy through the way that I'm leading with the peer groups and pouring into people through that. Through my family. Now we got 4 grandkids, so
wow.
I've told my kids, if you're expecting a big inheritance, don't. If there's any money left, I miscalculated somewhere. Now my grandkids, they're going to be okay, but identifying those people and pouring into them, that's really a big part of my legacy. Trying to bring up leaders that can step in, because I'm 68. I'm not going to be doing this forever. So I'm pouring into people that will step in and follow and carry forward things that we've got going on right now. So it's all about being intentional with how we invest in the people around us.
I love that. I love that. And as kind of what we start to wrap up here a little bit, but looking back in your journey, is there anything that you would have done differently or any risks you wish that you would have taken sooner?
Well, yeah, I made a mistake in the 90s of buying into this idea that you can't have faith in the marketplace. And so I was willing to check my faith at the door basically when I walked into work, and pick it back up when I left. Only after a while I quit picking it back up, and
wow.
I strayed from God, and it's a big lie that we can't have faith and be successful in the marketplace.
Right.
If you look at Scripture, Jesus spent most of his time in the marketplace. He wasn't sitting in the synagogue. He was
Right.
out with people and interacting with people and making an impact in their lives. And so, don't buy into this. You can't have faith and be successful, because you can. And I would argue that you're more successful when you're able to blend those things and be true and transparent in who you are in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think that that's amazing, right? Like lesson learned is I think what I'm hearing is don't hide who you truly are, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe those aren't the people that you want to connect with if they don't believe in what your beliefs are potentially, right?
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm sorry that that was an experience for you. That had to be quite difficult. I can't imagine that it might have been quite lonely during that time to experience that. So, but it's amazing to hear that it seems like you've reconnected back to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God hit me upside the head with a 2x4 and got my attention, and we we have been walking with him much more faithfully in the last 25 years. That's for sure.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, as we kind of close out today's session, do you have any parting comments for the listeners or anything else that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, I mean, intentionality is really an area that I think a lot of us we don't take seriously enough. We're only dealt 168 hours every week, and we get to choose what we're going to do with it. And too often we don't choose anything. It just gets piddled away, and we lose it. And there's no rewind button. There's no going back and doing it over. And so, as business owners and leaders, we make a lot of excuses around our family as to why we can't do this or be there for that. And they are excuses. There's no doubt about it. I don't know of any business that failed because owner went to the ball game, right? Or
Right.
took the day off for Christmas or Thanksgiving. But I hear a lot of people making that excuse, and they always say, "Well, I'm doing it for them." Well, you're really not. You're doing it for
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
So we got to get our focus on the people we love and care about, and be intentional about what we do with our time. That's our most precious gift. It's not money, it's time.
Right.
And we need to be focused on how we use that. And that's where planning is such important part.
I think that is well said. I had a peer group one time look at me, and these gentlemen are further in their career, and they looked at me and they said, Nick, go to the baseball games, go to the soccer games. If we all sit around here, that is the biggest thing that we regretted in our life. And
Yep.
so as I started the business I'm in today, as I said, listen, kids first, family first, then when they're grown up, we'll go crazy. But people can't always understand that. They're like, well, you've been doing this
Right.
business for 20 years. You should be $100 million by now. Yes, and my goal was not that. My goal is that my kids knew who I was, and that they saw me and present, and then I can work towards the additional journey. It's kind of the sacrifice we give, I guess, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Arlin, this has been wonderful, folks. That's a wrap on today's episode of Servant Leadership Library. We learned that whether you're on a farm in Iowa, running an IT firm, or leadership is about growing more than just crops and companies, it's about growing people. Huge thanks to Arlin, the man who can wrangle tech and tractors with equal finesse, for joining us today. And from the founding HDC peer groups to helping businesses owners like harvest that power of community has been beautiful. Arlin's journey proves that no matter what field you're in, whether it's the ag side or the IT side, serving others is always the best way to grow. So if you're looking to be a leader, remember, it's not about how fast your internet is. It's about how fast you're helping others succeed. So thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay tech savvy, stay humble, and keep serving.